TAAN TV's Changing with the Times. Tonight's topic will be women's rights versus political power. First, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. And secondly, I'd like for each one of our panelists to introduce themselves to you. Um, First, on my left, we will start with LaJuana.
Hello, everyone. My name is LaJuana Chambers Lawson. I go by the PMO CEO. I serve as the founder and chief executive officer of Tacit Growth Strategies, a global project management office and management consulting firm based here in San Antonio, Texas. Tacit Growth Strategies specializes in grant and proposal writing, project management, and government contracting. My firm and I have been featured in O, the Oprah Magazine, Entrepreneur, Forbes, Market Watch, San Antonio Business Journal's 40 Under 40, and most recently in Marquis Who's Who in America. I'm the best-selling author of Master Grant Writing, a Project Manager's Guide, and I was recently named the Global Director General of the Global Alliance of Angel Investor and Venture Capital Networks with the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade. As I was explaining to Lisa Jackson and the rest of our panelists tonight, I served on America's most trusted provider of reproductive health care's board between 2015 to 2020. So I'm happy to be here tonight to discuss what the investments in family planning can do for our society.
Thank you. And we have in the middle, Miss Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul. I currently live in Texas with my boys. I have 2 boys, and I am a worship leader at Grace Christian Fellowship here in Killeen, Texas. I just want to thank you all. It is a privilege to be to be on a discussion board like this, and I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you. And Miss Scott.
Hi, I'm Jonique Scott, and I am a new grad nurse, and also I hold a bachelor's in microbiology. I have 2 children, so I'm a mom, and I am just really excited to be here. Humanism in healthcare is a huge passion of mine, as well as women's rights, and I think that this discussion is vital considering the events of Friday, but I'm also always willing to sit on a platform with women who may have different opinions, as well as the same opinions as me, so that we can express those in a way that allow other people to see that we can have constructive conversation to move forward with all types of changes that need to be made, not just for women, but any kind of activism. So for having me, I'm glad to be here.
We are so glad to have each and every one of you. So tonight's discussion will be about the landmark decision, Supreme Court decision, overturning Roe versus Wade. I'm going to ask the panelists right off the bat, what were your immediate thoughts when the decision came down from the Supreme Court? What were you thinking? How were you feeling? We'll start with Ms. Scott.
Truthfully, I was angry. I immediately was angry. I was so angry that I put my phone down, and I couldn't even read through post. It was just a news post that came up. I was vacationing with the kids. I'm at Hurricane Harbor, laying out in my bathing suit, and I get this ding ding, and I was just so angry that I just couldn't even put the effort behind it at that moment. So it definitely put a damper on my sunshine, but yeah, pretty much it's immediate. I had this just flood of anger and disappointment.
Yeah. Ms. Paul?
I was actually driving when I got, the notification from the news app, and I read it, and as a Christian believer in Jesus Christ, I immediately was like, an answered prayer. So as you can me and my sister, we sit somewhat in some ways opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to because my immediate feelings were of relief, and as we go on, then you'll understand a little bit more why I believe that and I felt that way, because I'm not against most people, like most Christians are like, no, absolutely not. But there are instances where necessary, and I have a testament to that as we continue to talk about it.
Okay, I like that. And Ms. Lawson?
That was such a powerful transition because, you know, when I got the news on Friday, I was actually presenting to the National Council of Black Women in San Antonio chapter. And we were talking about the role of Black women in venture capital and impact investing. You know, just Black women seeing themselves as investors and actively looking for opportunities to invest in different companies and, you know, play a really active role. And it was a very, I wasn't surprised, obviously, because I was on the board of, you know, Planned Parenthood for all these years. So I knew that this fight has been going on for a long time, since, you know, 1992 really was the first time we saw, I think, a real threat to overturning Roe versus Wade. And, you know, we have people on the board of directors at Planned Parenthood who don't necessarily agree with abortion, because we have a lot of faith leaders that are on the board of Planned Parenthood, you know, who have some issues as well, like some conflicts. And, you know, it's such an intellectual space. And that's how you know it's a woman. It really needs to be a woman's conversation, an evolving conversation that really never ends, because it really is an intellectual conversation that we have as it relates to our morals, you know? So I thought
you think that
self-determination.
Do you think that men are not involved in this conversation? Because you're saying it's a women's, and this panel is all female, you know, now that we say it. So is this not an issue that men can be a part of making these decisions? Or,
I mean, men are a part of it. Men are, right? Men have lost the right to safe and legal abortion access throughout the country because of this overturning. But the reality is that the woman is the one who carries the fetus.
Okay. So we're on the record with you that this is solely a woman's decision. And Miss Scott, I think I heard some dissension over there. Did I hear you? Where do men fall in this decision?
You know, I feel like men should have a say. I think that when it comes to any relationship, and I would hope, and even though this is not always the case, and I'm not naive to this, one would hope that when a woman finds herself pregnant, that she sits down with her partner or the person with whom she conceived this child with, and she say, what do we want to do? And then if that man says, I don't want anything to do with this child, I would want you to, you know, have an abortion. Or if she's mentally against having this child and he says, but I want it, you know, obviously that's a conversation that needs to be had, but between the parties who conceived the child.
Right.
I don't feel like it's appropriate to have anyone else making the decision, but ultimately, the woman is who carries the child. And if she says, I absolutely do not want to do this for whatever reason that is, she has every right to do so. But I don't think that discounting our dads in that conversation is effective or appropriate.
So, Ms. Paul, we've discussed women's decisions and male decisions. And so where does the church come in to this conversation about women's bodies and their reproductive rights?
Well, I think where the church is that no matter how a child is conceived, the Bible, God knew us before we were conceived, that he knew us, which means it implies intimate relationship, an intimate relationship between this unborn child and God. And so I believe that being pregnant is a faith walk, and it's in many ways. And so I think that I might be going down a rabbit hole here, but I do believe that it's all about knowing that God has a plan for everyone's life, no matter, like I said before, no matter how they were conceived, or what the circumstances were behind it. Everybody has a purpose, and everybody has a reason for being here. And if there wasn't, then it wouldn't be. And I believe that the church's stance is that God is the one who makes that choice and not.
So I think the verse is I knew you even in your womb is the verse that we're taught. So
Yes.
Would you say that the Supreme Court's decision was a victory for the church? Is that what you're thinking, Miss Paul?
Absolutely. That the Supreme Court give back to the states. It was something I tried. And I do believe
we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Can you say that again?
It's multifaceted, especially within. I do believe that women's rights are multifaceted. It's especially when dealing with abortion, not a one size fit all. Because, like I said earlier, I had been in a situation where I was losing a pregnancy in middle of my second trimester of some steps that weren't exactly correct. I actually needed a DNC and actually considered an abortion. It's
yes, it is.
No matter how you get it, that's what it is. So I have had this procedure done twice from losing pregnancies for 3 pregnancies, but had the procedure twice. And so that's why I'm saying that it's multifaceted. It's not a one size fit all, because of the definition of it. Most people think abortion, somebody that got pregnant that just didn't want their baby, and always the case. And so while it was a victory for the church, I believe that it's also good that we have other conversations about what abortion does outside of just getting rid of an unwanted pregnancy.
I like that. And we need to have those conversations. Exactly. But Miss Scott, I think you would agree that now that, and I want you to jump in here on LaJuana when you feel it, now that it's been kicked down to the states, right? And quite a few of our states, I think it's 16 of them, have these trigger laws that will go into effect. Texas in particular will have one in 30 days that outright ban abortions. It's kicked down to the states. What can we do politically to stop that? Or is it a done deal? Is there anything that we can do or should do, or
Sorry, I think that was some feedback from my
there you go.
speaker here. But I mean, ultimately, each state is deciding. And at this point, the way to get those things changed are going to be our vote. We need to vote and elect local officials that are hearing our voice. We need to put into office people who are representing what we want to see happen in Washington. You know, everyone loves to talk about the presidential race, but that's not where the change happens. The change happens with our congressmen and our senators. Like, that's where our change happens, and they're the ones who hear our community's needs and take those back and say, okay, this is what my constituents want. And talking about rabbit holes, I mean, the whole political diorama, like, I'm going to call it drama, really needs some poking and prodding, but that's a conversation for a different day. But when it really comes down to it, if we want the changes to be made, you have to vote. And I'm not talking about your every 4-year presidential vote. I'm talking about your local elected officials. That's where you're going to see the changes that need to be made for things like this.
I believe Teddy Roosevelt said all politics are local. And that's what he was talking about. LaJuana, so you and I were kind of talking, all of us were kind of talking off before camera started. And we were talking about how some of these places have become institutions within our community because they're providing a multiple amount of services, and in particular, Planned Parenthood. I'm wondering, and I know you can't speak directly for Planned Parenthood, but I'm wondering how this decision will affect Planned Parenthood and the monies that they receive to continue to service the community. And you were saying, and I was in agreement, that when we were young women, Planned Parenthood was the place that you went for contraception, or you went for counseling, or you went for just for mammograms, you know, just all of that.
I mean, fertility treatments, referrals, hormonal treatment referrals, things of that sort that women of all ages, you know, experience. Well, not even just women, right? People who are trying to get pregnant, have a successful pregnancy in general. And you know, to the point that we were talking about just now, you look at our sheriff here in Bexar County, you look at our DA here in Bexar County, and they've both come out recently and said, you know what, I'm a father, I have children, I'm not going to pursue any legal action against someone who is looking to have an abortion done for whatever reason. Self-determination is what it comes down to, but also we have to be very cognizant of those social determinants of health. We forget that we went through slavery. We just got out of slavery not long ago. It wasn't that long ago, right?
No, really. My grandparents, parents and grandparents were slaves. So
come on, you know. And what are the ramifications of that? You know, our society, we've moved so far ahead as it relates to technology. You know, I met my husband online. You know, things are different. It was like Ms. Scott was saying earlier about the quality of life. We have to think about the quality of life of our individuals at this point. And I know that, you know, from a conservative standpoint, the conversation has for a long time been around population growth. And, you know, recognizing that in most places, you know, if you're thriving in Atlanta or thriving in New York City, it's because of a healthy balance of workers and people who are retired, you know. So we understand that from an economic standpoint, you know, we always want to be championing having more kids. I think the fertility rate, well, all around the world has been declining for many years. And I know in United States, our fertility rate is less than, well, probably less than 2.5 at this point. So, you know, what are the ramifications of a free country that doesn't have a lot of children? And that was the book that came out, you know, with Ben, with the think tank. He had a think tank with PBS, with the American Enterprise Institute many years ago. And I think Jane Elliott, there's a clip that's circulating on social media now from Jane Elliott, where she's reminding us that this is a white victory, right? A lot of, when you think about the aborted fetuses every year, they're overwhelmingly going to be white children, right? That are not born. And the conversation for years has been around what's going to happen in the United States. Well, we're going to be majority minority. Right. And how do you fight that? Well, you roll back things like Roe versus Wade, so that you force people almost into having to have unwanted pregnancies.
And, you know, I was just having that conversation with someone who didn't quite believe me. And I was explaining that. I said, you know, this is much more political than what we're thinking. This is not just about woman's right to a choice. This is about keeping the white majority in power. If you can force the white women and girls to become breeders, then you maintain power. And that's a whole nother conversation. I don't know if everybody's ready to have. But I was just having that conversation. So we've established the fact that all politics are local, and that wherever you are at, you either have access or you don't. I think we have 16 states, including Washington, D.C., that will have trigger laws that go in, and 22 that have some sort of bans that will kick in later. And we've established the fact that you've got to get political and you got to get active, but that's for the pro-right group. What does the pro-life group do now that they've achieved what they've been after for the last 50 years in 4 administrations? What is next for the pro-life group to do in this situation? Ms. Paul, if you can speak on that.
That's a good question. I know that a lot of people more in a more condescending way were putting that question on Facebook, but they were also answering that question, and that is there's a lot of children in foster care. There is a lot of children that need to be adopted. I think that if we're going to be pro-life, then we need to pick up some responsibility and take care of some children that already need us here. And so, and I wholly agree with that, even though the people that were commenting on this were actually pro-choice. Point, you can't say don't abort babies, there for these babies to go, and no one to care for them and love and nurture them. So I honestly believe it starts with a problem with children that are already here.
So this decision is based on a Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Healthcare in Mississippi, and this is going back to what you just said, Ms. Paul. I'm not understanding how states with the who are ranked number 50, 49, 50, 49, 48, and 47 in education claim to care about the children. They have extreme poverty levels. I mean, that's the part that I'm not getting. If you care about the children, but you don't want to pass effective gun legislation, you don't want to educate them, you don't want to feed them when they're here, and then when they do get here, you probably want to lock them up. And I know you don't speak for everyone. That's I think as a host, I'm kind of not understanding that part. You talked about it a little bit, but Ms. Paul, what do we do now? I mean, because it's in effect. The Supreme Court is the final decision. This is not, it's not a 1, 2, 3. You got somewhere else. This is the final decision, so it's done. And what do we do now with the babies that are here and the babies that are coming? Ms. Scott.
Well, I mean, sadly. Oh, that was for my sister. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think that the answer to that is we need if we're going to overturn Roe versus Wade, okay, then bring us something else. We cannot just sit here and in policy and not have anything to replace it. So the answer now is, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Something that I said earlier off the air, and what my sister was kind of hinting at, was that most conservatives are not pro-life. They are pro-birth. They are pro-birth for the reasons in which we discussed, right? And they blanket it with religion. And if we're being real, right, the Bible also says we're supposed to take care of our poor. So we can't sit here and have a double-edged sword that suits our needs just because we want to stand up on a soapbox and line our pockets. Because bottom line, that's what it is. So, we're going to call a spade today. But what we really need to do is we need to get back to the drawing board. We need to say what kind of social programs, community programs do we need to enact that are going to enhance the lives of these children that we're bringing in? What kind of subsidies are we going to continue to give to these moms, these uneducated moms or impoverished moms or hungry moms? Mm-hmm. What are we going to do for these families that are bringing in these babies?
Yeah.
And then the ones who are already here, the ones in foster care, the ones, you're 50th in the amount of, the amount you spend on per child in the United States, and you don't have free pre-K.
Right.
But you want to overturn Roe versus Wade and, have ridiculous abortion restrictions. And
so
I haven't really gotten to the nitty gritty of some of those restrictions, but we'll get there. I have faith in you. We'll get there.
We'll get there. I'm going to let you do that. So LaJuana, because this is kind of like in your wheelhouse here. Are you familiar with any of the programs or grants or anything that could be possibly coming down the pipe to support women and the children that they have now and the children that will be coming?
Yeah, Lisa, that's a good question. The conversation since last year has been around Black maternal health. As we know, Black women in this country are 3 times more likely to die due to pregnancy-related issues, even after a year after giving birth. Right. And, with that being said, we look at the state of Black women and Black people, and we say to ourselves, okay, at some point, this is very, like to Lisa's point, this is very political, very obvious that we want to roll this back because a lot of us have been able to come up and begin to, again, build generational wealth. And so I think the timing is pretty coincidental because we actually have been making quite a few strides on the philanthropic side of the house, the federal side of the house, as it relates to getting more resources into historically underserved, marginalized areas throughout the country that are majority Black, Hispanic, Latinx. So it's very interesting timing. There is a lot more that I suspect will be coming down, specifically to support access to safe, maybe not so legal abortion access at this point, because the reality is that just like what we saw in the 70s, before the 70s, women are going to find a way to get access to an abortion. They're going to, put together concoctions like we did before. Hopefully we don't have to go back to wire hangers and things of that sort. That's our precedent. The reality is that healthcare is healthcare. And these individuals, if they need it, they're going to go find it.
Right. And so we have throughout the state, this is what's kind of odd. So you've got a hodgepodge of states with different laws, different type of trigger laws with different, some at 15 weeks, some at 20, some at 6 weeks, like Texas. I mean, you've got this hodgepodge of laws on when life is a life and when an abortion is illegal. How does that help? How can you organize a fight for women's rights around such a hodgepodge of laws? How do you organize yourself if you're a pro-choice person? How do you organize yourself to fight against such a hodgepodge of different laws?
I think
and anyone can jump on that.
Yeah, I think what needs to happen is we delegate in those areas. You're going to have to delegate in the area you're trying to reach, because without some type of federal mandate, there's no way for us to put an even playing board across, an even playing field across the board for us to be able to address it, all together. So it ends up being, this region or this or this region or that state to be most effective, efficient. I think that's the best way to do it.
But that makes the fight harder. When you can't just organize around just this one attack method. And I think that's also, I think, part of the conservative strategy, in a sense, to have, so that you have to scatter your resources to figure out how to fight this war. I think that was also part of the strategy.
But
it makes it so much harder.
Our need to work twice as hard for half the recognition isn't new. So it's not like we don't know how to double down and do needs to be done. So at the end of the day, I think when we're looking at this fight, we're going to have a main vision. We have a main goal. And then what we do is delegate and say, okay, so in Texas, this group is going to address these things. And, in Oklahoma, this group is going to address these things. I think that it's important, to not lose sight of the big vision goal just because somebody's hill may be higher or their mountain may be taller, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I think that even maybe Ms. Paul, they may have to adapt the conservatives' battle strategy. I asked you earlier if you thought this was a victory for the conservative right, and you said yes, and I think most people believe it is. But is the conservative right ready to defend this victory? Because I'm getting the feeling that the 50 years that it took to overturn it, there'll be another battle coming in to get it reinstated. So is the conservative right ready to defend this victory?
I don't think so, because like my sister was saying, what was put into place to replace the overturning of this ruling? What was there was nothing. It was, this is overturned, but now what do, there's a question mark right there. And so while it is victory in some sense for the conservative side, for the Christians and religious people, I don't think that there is, as of right now, a plan to moving forward to make this a beneficial victory for people.
Right. Because, each state is going to have to defend it. Like I said, the Supreme Court is the ultimate decision, but what they've done is kicked it down to the states. So now the battleground changes from national to state. And so there's going to be a fight in each and every state over the women's right to choose. And that's what I'm just wondering, is the conservative right ready to battle in all 50 states over this right? LaJuana, we were talking about something else outside of the women's right to choose, a law that the Supreme Court just overturned Roe versus Wade. There is an undercurrent of constitutional rights being removed from other things that we've taken for granted here in the United States. And everyone's talking about it. That is the right to marry whom you choose. That is the right even to contraception. That is the right to sleep with whomever you want to. This Supreme Court seems to be very, very radically conservative. They've taken away the right to sue for Miranda rights. It's just all kind of stuff. It feels like 1955 coming back. So as an African-American person, I'm not going to even say woman, but as an African-American person, how are you feeling at this moment about the Supreme Court? Is it like, are we mobilized as African-Americans? Are we getting mobilized to battle some of this stuff, states' rights stuff again, like it's 1865?
I appreciate it. I honestly do appreciate it because, I think that we have been asleep for a while. And I think this is the time to remember and to realize the world that we live in. We've enjoyed a lot of privileges that we didn't even know we had access to, and that a lot of times we were actually, prevented access to over these years. And I think now that we see that we have a radical Supreme Court that is, actively looking to redress a lot of the progress that we thought we were making, it reminds us of the country that we live in. It reminds us of the times that we live in. Yesterday, when President Trump had his press release, it was on Friday. When he had his press release, the woman that introduced him said, "Congratulations to our former President Trump for making sure that we had this white life victory."
Wait, she said what?
She said, "Congratulations for victory for white lives. Congratulations to former President Trump." That's what she said. She introduced him that way.
Yeah.
And our producer is saying, yes, she did. I'm telling you right now. So what we have not understood for a long time, and our producer knows this because she served in state representatives here in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
We have this fight did not end. It never did.
Right.
We just fell asleep on it and moved on to other things. But we have to get back at it, because everything that we thought that we were progressing with, we thought that we were done with. We're mixed. We have all these people who are of mixed heritage. Why are we still dealing with these issues? Because it never went anywhere. When we were slaves, we were being raped. And a lot of us were mixed at that point in time, and we were still being bought and sold and still being raped and it does not matter. These people don't see us as human, period.
Absolutely.
Well, they don't see women, and I know Ms. Scott is jumping at the bit on this, because they don't see women as people. Now, I am a light-skinned Black person, and so is everybody. We're mixed race, and we know how we got here from just that. But the idea of a woman's womb, whether it's slavery or Reconstruction or 1952 or 2022. Seeing us as less than and just as a womb, how does that make you feel, Ms. Scott? Because I can see you over there in that corner. That's upsetting you. How does that,
It is angering, because at the end of the day, think about another group of mammals that doesn't have control over their own bodies. You are talking about like a herd of cattle. Like, we are not domesticated animals owned by a farmer to come out and say, okay, this group gets to get pregnant this season, this group doesn't get to get pregnant this season. Like, what are we talking about?
Wow.
Basic
you know what?
Right.
But it's not unlike America's, which is what Ms. Lawson was talking about. This is not unlike America.
Oh, no, absolutely. And this is why
they've done it before.
Being reminded something and even hear Clint Thomas say that they are now going to look at contraception. I'm sorry. Oh, are we living in The Handmaid's Tale? Like, I need to have my husband go co-sign on my ability to get my prescription for birth control pills.
Right.
It's not just it's infuriating, not just as a woman of color, but as a woman in general. It's infuriating to be seen as inferior to a group of men that do not represent the laws, do not represent the people that the laws that they're passing are actually affecting. Because
now we keep saying a group of men, but let's be honest, there are also groups of women.
Yeah, you're right.
Who are in support of them.
Numbers. It's mainly old white men. I mean, that's what it is. It's mainly old white men. And yes,
Miss Paul, she says you're an old white man. Miss Paul.
She's not an old white man.
But no, I mean, well, we have to look at that part too. There are, for whatever reasons, I can't think of any, but there are groups of women who actually, for either it's for religious reasons or political reasons, I can't imagine what it is. But there are also, groups of women that support this type of legislation.
Yeah, and we also had a whole bunch of groups of women that supported Retrumplicans and that are Retrumplicans and that supported Trump. And so we know that there are I'm going to be kind. We know, I'm going to use my nursing terms. We know that we have knowledge deficits in certain groups, and it causes them to not all the way think independently. Okay. And with that being said, you know, even my sister said there are certain situations where I feel like abortion is appropriate, right? With some of these trigger laws that are coming out, there are big questions in the balance. And this is where you see that knowledge deficit from lawmakers, like people who are supporting President Trump and his antics, or women who are supporting this over Roe versus Wade because they haven't seen it affect them yet. But I guarantee you, I read an article on CNN, or it wasn't CNN, it was a news app. It came up, and actually I took a picture of it because I wanted to make sure that I had it for us to discuss today. 11-year-old girl at church camp was raped by her camp counselor, and she got an abortion. Now I guarantee you that one of those grandmas who's over there overturned Roe versus Wade. If her 11-year-old granddaughter came home and said, that man hurt me and I'm now pregnant, she's going to another state to make sure that that child can have a quality of life that doesn't involve her getting pregnant and having a baby at 11 years old.
But see, that brings up another issue, because as Justice Ginsburg was explaining, that the right to an abortion could come down to financial stability.
Oh, absolutely.
And the only people who are hurt by the lack of choice are poor women or undereducated women, because the women with money will find a way to access abortion. So again, the disparity in America is so blatant. It's so blatant. What are we gonna do with those women who? We already have the answer. I'm trying to figure. I am on the spot trying to figure out how are we going to help those women who financially cannot access abortions. The wage disparity, the class disparity, the education disparity leaves those women lacking with less choice than ever, because there are still states that you can have an abortion. So I'm not subscribing to the fact that all 50 states have banned it. There's not a federal legislation that's banned abortion, but those that lack means are basically stranded. So how do we help those women that want to access abortion, but they lack financial means to take care of that? Or is that anything that the movement does? LaJuana, I hear you answering. Is that something that the movement takes on? Is that part of the war, fighting against new legislation or replacing politicians, and also providing the means to women who can't to access choice?
You know, we have online resources for unplanned pregnancies. So we have here, if a home pregnancy test shows that you're positive, trust it. It's rare that you'll get a false positive. If you're faced with an unwanted pregnancy, most states require you to act quickly. You can find your nearest clinic through Power to Decide. It's an abortion finder. If you have to travel out of state for an abortion, the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project or the I Need an A database can link you to local organizations that can help you find funding for an abortion.
So there's money that needs to go to women who lack choice, and then there's monies that need to go to the fight the political battle. Now, Ms. Paul, what are the conservatives prepared to do to help women in this situation who find themselves teenagers, women and girls who are the victim of rape, molestation, or, just being teenagers, and things happen. What is the church ready to provide as to assist those young people or women?
I think that it is, or the church people need to start with educating young people, because I used to work in a high school, and I worked with students, and I remember having conversations with young girls between the ages of 15 and 17 that were sexually active, but did not know what their own anatomy was called, or where the baby came out of, or any of these things. And so the lack of knowledge, I think, is a big part of that, and the church can step in, and because we're supposed to be for the community, to step in and educate these young people, and stop saying that sex is a taboo subject, and actually educate the young people. And I think providing a contraceptive would actually be proactive in this, because if you're proactive in your own healthcare, then it's possible that you can prevent the need to have an abortion later on. That's something that you're okay with. I think that birth control, any kind of contraception, it's just a matter of it being available. And I used to think, in my youthful ignorance, that providing contraception was a means of condoning the activity. But after just growing up, guys are having conversations with my sister, this conversation in particular many times, that you can't control us, but you can prepare them for it. And so you educate, and then provide the means for them not to get in the situation in the first place. That's where the church and the conservatives can start, honestly.
And see, but this is what I don't understand. And just to kind of kick it off, I want to say, President Reagan launched his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi. That was where he announced he was running for president. And if you don't understand what the significance of Philadelphia, Mississippi, you got to look that up. But that's where the civil rights, that's one of the time bombs, the ticking time bombs and landmarks of the civil rights movement. There was a reason that he launched in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And he says it's morning in America again. So Trump is not the first one to say bring America back. It started with Reagan. So what I don't understand about the conservatives starting in that era in the 80s is they didn't want sex education in the schools, right? So you don't want to give sex education. The Reagan administrations and Republican administrations, or excuse me, Congresses ever since, they don't want to fund Planned Parenthood. But then they want to overturn Roe versus Wade. I mean, it just is, and they don't want to fund, they want to cut all social services, food stamps or Medicare and all these. It's not making sense to me what it means to be a conservative and be pro-life. It's just not making sense to me. You don't want to feed the babies. You don't want to educate the teenagers. But you don't want them to have an abortion, but you're pro-life. And the church, I just don't see the church giving sex education classes. It could be me, but I'm just not seeing that.
Well, I think so. Like at the beginning, like what I said was, even though me and my sister kind of sit on different sides of this, there's no question that I love Jesus. I really think that sometimes we get it wrong, but one of my biggest platforms being a nurse is community education. And a huge passion of mine is making sure that we are educating our young people, especially young women, on their bodies, on their on their choices, on consent. And it's because we were raised in the church. Me and my sister were raised in the church, and sex was not a big topic. It's always, don't do it. Premarital sex is a sin, and then that's it. And if there wasn't enough education behind the why, there wasn't enough talking about it. The taboo, making it taboo makes you want to do it. Everybody, teenagers, come on. We've all been a teenager.
Right.
Your mom said, don't touch that. Even as a toddler, don't touch that. It's hot, right? And then what you do?
You gotta touch it.
I told you to touch it. Now you done burnt yourself. So it's the same thing. It's important that we are educating these kids, even if it's in church. And I completely agree with you that there is a hypocritical, and it's a huge juxtaposition to be sitting here saying, we don't want you to not have these babies. It's good for you to have these babies, but we're not going to feed them. We're not going to help you educate them, and we're surely not going to help you take care of them. You got to figure that out on your own. It's completely hypocritical. And to me, that doesn't look like the love of Jesus.
Yeah.
So,
And this, go ahead.
No, at the end of the day, I completely agree with you. It doesn't line up. And it goes back to what we were talking about, excuse me, that whole political thing that we don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because that's a different show, a different conversation for a different day. But we are too worried about people pleasing and lining pockets instead of doing what's best for our communities. Yeah.
I'd like to see the church, Ms. Paul. I would love to see the church come in and help to educate and educate this part, because I don't think there's any woman that wants another woman to have an abortion. Let's get there. I don't think there's anybody that's like, yay, let's go, have abortion. I don't think that's the case.
And women don't go into it lightheartedly. It's a hard decision to make.
Right. I don't think there's anyone saying that.
Yeah, it's not the woman that goes in and says, it's my fifth one. Let's get it down.
Yeah.
It's the rape victim. It's the mom that has a child that they know has a genetic deformality that this child is not going to survive.
Yeah.
She cannot go through that pregnancy.
And women die. Back to Ms. Lawson's point, I remember being in the 7th grade, and one of my teachers, his wife was pregnant, and that's when I realized women die. She died, and this is in the 80s, and that's when I realized, because I'm just thinking like everybody else, like, oh, well, women don't die. But you have a baby, you get pregnant, you have a baby, but that's not the reality. And he was an African American, she was an African American, and she died. And so to be 12 and 13 years old at that time and realizing that I can die from having a baby. And I'd never thought about that before. It just seems so such a, natural thing. And to have legislation that totally disregards that aspect of a woman's life is just, it's insane. And to go back to Ms. Lawson's point, it is largely, the death rate is largely based on your ethnicity. And even your income level. It's just so many layers to this law that deserves, like I say, a whole nother show. But there's so many layers to this law that it just needs to be broken down. We've got a few more minutes. You guys, if there's anything that I didn't cover, because I only have an hour and I'm trying to get, a little bit of everything in. Is there something, Ms. Paul, that we missed that you want to make sure that the audience understands about you and your position as a worship leader, and how you feel the church and conservatives in general have been represented after the decision?
I can't speak for every religious person, but speaking for myself and the things that I've almost lost my life because of a pregnancy, and that where placenta started to detach when I was 17 and a half weeks pregnant, and I'm death. And that was the situation I needed to have, which is technically abortion. And so I think that as a conservative, as a worship leader, a Christian, I think that it's important that we have these conversations, because I'm usually one that sees only black and white. My sister can tell you, I'm like literally just black and white. But there's so much gray area here, because it's not just based off of oh, this woman just doesn't want to have a baby, or she wants to, or she did this. Like, that's not always the case. And
but I get the feeling that that's the narrative that they put out, that you're just irresponsible.
Yeah, I think that is the narrative usually, because like I said before, and like in my youthful ignorance, that's what I thought, and until I had multiple family members that have come up in this situation, and I can't and my heart goes out. It wasn't oh, you're sinning and you're going to hell situation. It was, oh my God, I believe that you're in this situation, and so it's not always black and white. And I think as the church that we should display some grace and some mercy for people, with also keeping our stance on where we stand on the subject. But we do need to step in more. If we want there to be abortions, and we took away abortions after so many, we need to step up to the plate and be a means of education and community and all of those things for people that need it the most.
I'm going to say something to you that's stark, and it's the reality of the situation. Do you realize that starting Friday, that if you had that same pregnancy, that you would die? That they're not making the exception for you to have your DNC and what other health care you need. How does that feel to know that you didn't matter? That as of Friday, you someone in your position, or you wouldn't matter?
I mean, that saddens me, because at the time when that happened, I had only been married for a year and a half. I was 21 years old. And to know that my life I would have never made it to the age of 35, which I am now, that's sad. And that's why I think that these conversations need to be had, because this is not a black and white situation. There's so many that needs to be discussed, addressed.
Yeah. I think of myself as a young woman. I didn't have any abortions, but I was a young woman once. And as we were talking about Planned Parenthood in our neighborhoods and close to my schools and colleges and stuff, like I went to Planned Parenthood for birth control. And I have to think about the business that I run today and the positions that I have and everything that I do. And I'm wondering, if I did not have access to that, what would have happened to me? Would I've still been able to make it? But it was the access to birth control that allowed me to not be a statistic, and to go to school and to do all the things that I need to do. And that makes me sad that that's been taken away from generations of girls and women today. They won't have that. They won't have that. LaJuana?
The only thing, Lisa, you got me, because here's the part, right? And you and I had this conversation recently. We don't want to connect what's really going on. When we look at a lot of the crises, the conflicts, the wars that are happening right now, and we look at our reaction as a people, when Russia, decided to go to war with Ukraine, we were all about it. We wanted to make sure that we opened our arms, accepted people, take care of them. Those Haitians that we had at the border, we treated them like dogs, worse than dogs. Excuse me. We don't even treat our animals that way. And
we've never got on a horse and whipped a dog in the street.
Our animals like that.
But this is what I'm telling y'all. If you look at the fertility rates around the world, in the continent of Africa is where we still see per every woman about more than 4 children per woman. Right. So we see the highest fertility rates still on the continent of Africa. It is not a coincidence that we see what's happening here today. And we don't want to bring those people into this country. The immigrants that we want are immigrants who are of other nations, not African.
Right. And they haven't hidden that. That was, your President Trump never hid that. He's like, no, he didn't. I want to have Europeans come here, and specific Europeans. They only wanted Western Europeans. They didn't want the Eastern Europeans. Right. So there's specific Europeans that they wanted immigrating here.
It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. And I need us to be cognizant of that. And our producer also reminded us of organ harvesting. Organ harvesting is still real. It's something that happens everywhere in the world as it relates to sexual trafficking and organ harvesting. Our people, African peoples, are the ones who experience that and are the brunt of that every single time. So our people are hurting in this world. And that's why I said we've been asleep for a long time. And now we're waking up to what's happening all around us.
And LaJuana, there's been like this explosion of conservative dictators and leaders throughout the Western world in the last 10 years. There's been been this crazy explosion of it. So that falls right into what you're talking about. Now, Ms. Scott, I want to make sure that we hit everything that you wanted to talk about. Did we miss something? There's a good final statement you got from me.
I think there are just 2 things. The first thing is people need to educate themselves on what exactly it means to have this overturned. It's not just about the abortion for the unwanted pregnancy. It's also about the access to health care, the right to choose, the respect for autonomy, for me to be able to say this is my body and this is what I want or this is what I don't want. And I think that with that lack of education, as we have seen, because we've seen it through all of the elections and different things, when we have limited education, they are able to sway us easily. And I won't say us as in us as a people. I mean, just like the population, the community as people. They can tell you the sky is purple, and if your vision is limited, the sky to you is going to be purple. So it is so important that we know exactly what this means. The DNC that my sister wouldn't be able to have, the mom or the woman who struggles with infertility and she's gone through IVF and she now has these embryos that maybe a couple of them have genetic deformalities and they don't want to implant those embryos. But because at the moment of conception, we can no longer
destroy them.
Destroy them. Have an abortion. Technically, that embryo is a conceived pregnancy. It's an petri dish, but it's the same, right? Yeah. So I think it's so important that people are understanding exactly what this means for them and how it can affect their family. Like we talked about earlier, that 11-year-old child who might have been molested at church camp, or that sister or that daughter or that mom, who cannot access what they need to access for the health and safety of themselves, because now we're going to see that influx of abortion across the border. They're already seeing it. I saw 3 news articles.
Here's the thing. The conservatives have never been able to contain their plans. They've never been able to keep a secret. They've always broadcasted. And Chief Justice Thomas has already broadcast what it is that they want to do next. For some reason, they've never been able to hold water. So we know that the attack on not the personhood, they've already had that, but we know, like you said, autonomy and choice for self, all of that is going to be coming to the court in the next few years. And he's already said that they're going to question your right to have contraception, to marry, to marry interracially, marry, to your gender identity, and to love who you want to love, and all of these things. It's coming.
Well, I think that was a really good point about why we need to really keep that differentiation between church and state.
Yes.
Because this is not a religious argument. Last time I checked, America, we have freedom of religion. So I don't understand why we have all of this religious, and I'm going to say religious because religious is not the same as my relationship with God. Please don't misunderstand.
Yeah.
All of this religious oppression that is forcing the movements and these changes in our laws and legal system, because this is not freedom of religion or freedom in America. But like we talked about earlier, there's an underlying agenda here that we're not talking about. And so now, because this exception to the rule, even though we want to keep church and state separate and we do have freedom of religion, but we have to make this exception because, they're threatened. Their population is being threatened, right?
Their dominance is being threatened.
Don't forget, we came on ships, and those ships were named Trinity. They were named the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
They enslaved us in the name of God.
In the name of God. Yes. And that is a theme. That is a theme in oppression, to use Jesus and say it's okay because we're doing it in the name of God. But
in the name of God.
Those things are so important for us to be mindful of. Sorry, I'm getting feedback and I can hear myself. So.
That's okay. I think we're saying the same thing because I'm a Christian. I'm a Baptist. I love it all. Yeah. And I believe in grace. That's how, that's the basis of my religion as a Baptist, in grace. And these are decisions that you make. You'll be talking to God about them. And that's between you and God. But I want as a Christian, I want a separation of church and state. If I have a problem, I'm going to go talk to God about it. And if I, have an abortion or whatever, that's between me and my God. That is not between me and Governor Abbott. I just, what I'm saying? I don't know why I need to discuss that with Governor Abbott, President Trump, or President Biden. I don't know why I need to do that. Or Clarence Thomas, why is he in my, why does he need to know what I'm doing? I believe in the separation of church and state. And that's where we're going to have a problem, because America wants to, if you want to impose religious ideas, well, we have several religions in the United States, and they believe different things. So even if you're coming on that basis of religion, well, whose religion are you?
It's still contradictory.
Whose religious laws are you following?
Absolutely, because you can't sit here and say, "Oh, I'm a Christian and this is what God says," but God also says free will. And where is our free will in limiting our autonomy? It does not line up. Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said, we have several religions in the United States, and they're all free. So are we going, whose religious laws are we following? And I don't want Miss Paul to feel like we're jumping on you. We're not.
No,
we're not. Because I respect the conservative perspective.
Yeah. But she agrees with stuff that we say too. Yeah. You can hear her in the background.
No, but I agree with the conservative perspective on some stuff. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that that there are some valid points that you all are making. Some bringing to my attention that I didn't know, and so you have, and it would be ignorant of me to just say no, I'm sticking to leave. That's not the point of this discussion. So. Yeah. And I learned a lot during this.
Well, I think I'm about to end it, but I think I'm going to sum it up and say we've come up with, number one, we need to, for those that are pro-choice, mobilize and organize to fight the laws. Then you're going to have to mobilize and organize to protect the lives that are already here. Because apparently Mississippi ain't gonna feed or clothe them. So you're gonna have to, get together and make sure they get educated, fed, and clothed and protected. So that's a two-pronged front that you're gonna have to do. And then I know that the conservative right is gonna have to prepare themselves for the battle that's coming, because these ladies are not gonna lay down for that. There's another battle coming, and I hate to see America divided like this, right? I really hate to see it happen, but it has to happen, and we're in the last throes of, some people say, the Civil War, but this is just a war for America's soul. It's not
expand Medicaid and Medicare, because we're
freedom.
Uninsured.
Yeah, we're uninsured. Yeah. And girl, don't even get started. Is healthcare right? See how it just all goes. Yeah. You think you ended the subject and it's still there. Is healthcare right now? So we just want to expand freedom, which I thought was the goal of America to begin with. But restricting stuff is not doing it. So, ladies, I could go on, and I start babbling, and we're dipping into Reagan and launching his presidency in the most racist place in America. To Donald Trump, this is a victory for white people. To my friend over here, Miss Paul, who could die if she had couldn't get the same DNC today, and Miss Scott, who gonna beat the hell out of y'all if you don't listen to what's going on. She's ready for battle. I would love to talk to you ladies again if we can get TAAN TV maybe to organize another one, and then we can get a little bit more specific into these topics. We just don't have the time, but I hope that we gave our audience something to think about. There's so many facets to this law, and you just kind of need to break it down and understand. Don't be part of the uneducated group. Understand what's going on. Find your group that's organizing in your favor and get involved, whether that's on the conservative side or on the liberal side, but find the place that you fit in and get involved, and let's try to expand freedoms for everybody and make some changes here in the country. We've all got midterm elections, but politics are local, per Teddy Roosevelt. So know who's on your school board, know who's in your council seat or alderman, depending on where you live, who's in your city mayor manager's office, who is your DA. But we haven't got into that, but you really need to know who's your DA and your state rep and your senators, and get involved if you want to see change on the conservative side, or if you want to see change on the liberal side, whatever it is you want to do. Expand your freedom in America, take advantage of the rights that you do have, and let's make America what it was founded to be. Outside of only white men with property can vote. Let's not do that. Let's not do that part. Okay. So you have been watching Changing with the Times on TAAN TV. Want to thank TAAN TV and Laura Thompson for having us on today. Hopefully she'll have us back and we could talk about that other stuff. And I hope you enjoyed your talk, and I hope we made you mad a little bit though. That's what I'm really hoping. Okay. So we'll see you soon. Goodbye.